And this is going to be the exact same setup as before. Oh, just quick save here. Okay, this is going to be the same setup as before. So it's going to be the folder and then a layer. The layer is going to be base. Folder is going to be whatever you're currently working on. So here's the body, here's the base. The only thing I want to change on this is actually like put in the base color. I actually just want to change this to a blue. Something like that. Okay. So here's the base. A few more things I want to adjust is the roughness. It's too shiny, so I'm going to go into the roughness and bring that down quite a bit, which is looking better now. Metallic is fine. I don't want to have any metallic there. The height is 0, which may seem confusing because there is height value here, but that height value is actually now baked into the normal map. So it's a bit of a, yeah, it's just a different way of doing it. But when you bake the height map that you have created back into the mesh, it just gives your generators a lot more detail to work with, and you get a lot more control over what you're texturing. So I just noticed that there's a few more that I would need to bake. The ambient occlusion and the thickness, those take a little while, so I won't do that. But I'll continue just showing you the basics of how this texture was created. So at this point, I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to create another fill layer, put the fill layer in the folder, call this hands, feet, and tummy. This is going to be base. And now for this one, I want the color to be, yeah, like a whitish color. And I want the roughness to be, for example purposes, let's make this really shiny. Okay. So now we got white. Okay. And now this is where the masks come in. So you can see here that it's all white because I don't have any masks set up. I want it to be blue with some white. So now I'm going to right click here, go back to base color, right click. I want to make a black mask, which makes it all disappear. And now I'm going to just actually start kind of painting in where I want this to go. So that would be there, the hands, and the feet. Okay, as I said before, I'm just going to keep this loose and quick for example purposes. Okay, so now we got something like this. Excellent. And we want to do, let's say, we'll do one more thing. We'll do folder, fill, put the fill in the folder, and then call this gradient. This one, I only want to have color. And the color I want is like a purplish, something like that. Okay, once again, black mask. And I want to put a dab there. A dab on the tips of the fingers. And then a little bit on the, I guess, the bottom of the feet, sort of. Okay. Now, you'll notice that it's looking pretty sharp. I am going to add a blur modifier to show how that could add some gradients and different effects. So I'm going to right click on that layer. I'm going to add a filter. No, I'm not going to add a filter. What am I going to add? Yeah, okay. I just needed to add it above. So once you add a filter and then add a blur filter, you can actually just use this slider to start creating some nice gradients. You'll notice if you get a little too close to a seam, you might get this, which is where you might have to actually go in by hand and start doing a bit of a blurring there with just the soft brush or whatever you want to use. But you can see here, because there's no real seams or anything like that near the feet are getting a really nice kind of a transition here. I think it's looking a little too shiny. Let me just adjust that quickly. Yeah, you can see the gradients a bit better like that. Okay, so let's say we are happy with this as the final. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do one more generator on the fur just to give an example of how we can get a little bit of extra detail for that. So in the body, I'm going to create one more fill layer. I just want color for this one, and I want these to be sort of like a fur highlight. So something pretty bright like that. Call this fur highlights, and I will show you an example of how powerful these rebaked normal maps are. One more thing about the gradient, if you want to just bring the color down, you can control that here. It's always good when you're doing a gradient to have it very, very low, because you don't want it to be too overpowering. But at this point, it's essentially about stacking and balancing, and let's just leave it at that for now so it's not too distracting. Okay. Okay, so here we have the highlights. We want to add a black mask, and then inside that black mask, I want to add a generator. Okay, so now it's asking me, well, what type of generator? Click that, and I want to use I think I want to use a curvature. Okay, so you can see here when you're using a generator, it points out which maps it's actually using here. Which helps a lot, because sometimes if these are blank, then that means you have to bake those maps. But anyways, we have the curvature map going, and it looks like it's hitting all of the outer, yeah, it's hitting all of the outer pieces a little bit more, making them show up a little bit better. Okay, so if I turn this on and off, you can see it's sort of grabbing all of the outside pieces. And then if you want to adjust this, you can have a few sliders here. You can also invert. This is helpful sometimes with the curvature map if you want to just get like the what are they called? Like the crevices, the stuff in between all the hair. And you can also go through with brushes, and so for example, if I have this set up, I have maybe a little bit too much of the white, right? And I don't like that much. I want to get rid of it in a few places, but not all of them, right? Okay, so what I do in this instance is I add a paint layer, and with this paint layer, this is just going to add and remove from that mask, right? So I could go through, and you can see here, this just gets rid of everything completely, right? It wipes it out pretty good. But if I want to have it look a little bit more randomized, I can go into my brushes and just grab, you know, a dirt brush or any brush that's not just like a solid circle, and go through and kind of start stamping around. And you'll start to see that it starts to create a little bit of a patchy or not as consistent look, which these things go a long way if they're subtle. Right now I'm going too much with it, obviously. But when done, when you take the time to do it properly and break these up a bit, it starts to look really, really a lot more natural, instead of having all of the outer edges white like that for a highlight pass. Okay, so anyways, you can see how this is working, I think. So here would be like a highlight pass, and then like I want to do one more, and I want to have the inner parts be darker for the fur. So it's the same thing. I'm going to add a fill layer. I only want color for now. We're going to make this one dark. Let's get rid of this gradient for now. It's a little distracting because it's hitting a seam here. So we want this one to be, I don't know, pretty dark bluish, something like that. Okay, we're going to add a black mask, and then we're going to add a generator to that. Okay, once again, we're going to go in and add a curvature. And for this one, we're going to actually invert that. So it's only going to have the darker parts, right? The color is too extreme, so we're going to turn that down quite a bit. And okay, it's looking not too bad. But we don't want it on everything. So I'm going to try a different generator. I'm going to try metal edge wear, which should just get the edges a little. And then I'm going to invert that, which should just have, yeah, there we go. That's looking a lot better. Now I'm going to just turn this way down. And you can see it starts giving a little bit of variety. And the texture starts looking a little bit less flat. As I said before, this is just a quick example of how to set these up and get these going. So it's not as clean as the actual final, which you see here is pretty nice and clean, but I think the information is hopefully getting through. So now at this step, you would just go through and finalize the texture, add some gradients, you know, go through and add different roughness channels and whatever you want. And then for when this texture is complete, I will show you how to create a smart material and then use that smart material to create a variation in the next video.